I have a confession to make. I lied. It's bad. It's really bad. It's not that bad. It's not a big deal. I'm just joking. So in my video, The Deaf Noodles and Ethan Klein Conspiracy, I said I haven't missed anything from Deaf Noodles since I subscribed in January. And while I technically haven't missed any of his regular episodes, I did not watch the debate with Papa Gut. So I don't know if you count that as like part of his show or not. I don't think it counts, but if you do, then I lied because I completely ignore that shit. I remember him talking about it, but I just kind of dismissed it because I don't really care about debates. I think they're rarely productive, other than getting like each side's fan base, riled up and like giving them a good show. I don't find much value in them for myself. And I remember Def apologizing for it at some point. He like said that he was stupid or something. He made some video about it, but I just kind of dismissed it because I was like, I don't care about debates. But I just watched it today. It is April 20th, so I'm a few months late, story of my life. And now having seen it, it is like 90 minutes of pure cringe. It is hard to watch. It's not hyper concentrated cringe like Amy Schumer stuff. I don't know how she does that. I mean, she's like a natural, but it is bad. I honestly don't know what any of his points were. I could not pay attention to them because he was interrupting Papa Gut so many times. I mean, it might have been 100 times. I'm not exaggerating. And for me personally, that is my number one biggest pet peeve. I cannot stand being interrupted. And so I always notice it. That video should be like training for like the cops or like Navy SEALs or something. Like, high conflict situations and just, you know what I mean? Like 90 straight minutes. Oh my God, that was bad. Basically, they kept trying to set up a discussion and they sort of got through some points along the way, but it just kept being new things starting and Deaf Noodles interrupting and bringing in some new random bullshit and Papa Gut handling it really well. And I don't know who that guy is, by the way. I've never watched 1 second of his stuff ever. But in the debate, Papa Gut looked so good. He looked so like mature and he had self-control and he was just being calm and trying to deal with Deaf Noodles just debasing himself again for 90 minutes straight, which was crazy. So why does this matter at all, right? Because we learned who Deaf Noodles is. He seems to be pretty undeveloped. I don't know how old he is, but he reminds me of myself in my very early 20s. Like very intense, very hot-headed, very sensitive, incapable of taking criticism. It seems like he has really low impulse control or like emotional control, emotional regulation. It seems like he's really not present. And when he's uncomfortable at all, he doesn't know how to handle that. And so he sort of does all these emotional outbursts. And he honestly doesn't really seem that fun to be around. I was really wondering to myself, like, what this guy's social life is like. I think his name is Dennis, right? So I was thinking, like, does this guy have friends? Like, how do you have friends if you're like this? You know what I mean? Like, you need to let people talk. And I used to have pretty bad anger problems. And so I went to therapy for a long time. And I worked on myself. And I went through the excruciating process of, facing down head first, all my flaws, all my mistakes, all my shortcomings, rooting out all the bad behavior, looking for the source of everything. And I've said this before, but in my opinion, all guys, especially straight guys, would all benefit a lot from therapy. And maybe I'm just projecting, but based on all the conversations I've had with other people, especially women who've, been involved with men who have never been to therapy, it really seems to me like a lot of guys are really similar to me. And except for the fact that they never went to therapy and they never did any, self-reflection or self-examination. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly who Deaf Noodles is. And it's interesting because, like I said, he kind of reminds me of how I used to be. I've always wanted to be someone. That's part of why I started making videos. But I've also always known my whole life that I'm not ready for that. Because I will cancel myself. I will do something like this, except it'll be way worse. And I'll just embarrass myself. I'll not cancel, like, say something offensive or wrong. I know I'll never do that. But I just mean like I'll do something so heinously, shockingly embarrassing that like it'll just be over. Because I've always been the way he is. And so now that I've gotten to a place where I'm comfortable with myself, that's why I'm making videos now. But it's funny because seeing this display of his behavior, this is exactly why I didn't start making videos until now. That is exactly why, because I didn't want this to happen to me. And so this is an interesting case of separating the art from the artist. Because now that we know who the artist is, do we still want to respect the art? I've always seen it as like a spectrum, right? So on the one side, you have people where it is absolute and there is no gray area. You cannot separate the art from the artist. For example, there's Kevin Spacey. There's no gray area there. You cannot separate the art from the artist. It doesn't matter how good of an actor he is. The fact that he's an actor is irrelevant. The art as a whole is irrelevant because of who the artist is. And to me, Deaf Noodles is almost on the complete opposite side of the spectrum because he's not a bad person. He's clearly just some guy, like some straight guy, by which I mean he's not perfect. He's just some guy doing the news. And he calls himself a comedian, which seems like kind of a stretch to me. I think he called himself a comedy channel at one point. Now I do laugh at his jokes, but That's because I have the sense of humor of a 2-year-old. Like a apple could just roll off the table and I'm gonna burst out laughing. And now I kind of want to defend myself. I can appreciate all levels of comedy and humor, all the different kinds. You know, I love the Eric Andre show. I love Arrested Development. I love Broad City. And yes, I'm 28. If you're Gen Z, then you're gonna be so surprised to hear this, but my favorite show is The Office. I know it's like get your own personality, right? But I think Def can get some laughs. I don't think he's a comedian. He's not a comedian. What I'll say is he says funny things, but I was very surprised when he called himself a comedy show. That, that was very surprising to me. I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize that's what he thought. I did not realize that. I get why people say it's not funny, and it was very interesting. It was my eyebrows were raised when he said it's a comedy show. I was like, or a comedy channel. I was like, wow, okay. And so now after watching the debate and learning who he is, I can ask myself, can I separate the art from the artist here? And the answer is definitely yes. He's not like problematic in any way. And I wouldn't even say that he suffers from toxic masculinity, because his issues don't seem to stem from his relationship with his identity as a man. I really think it's just basic lack of development, basic lack of self-reflection, which is something that men do, and that's what causes toxic masculinity. But toxic masculinity is when it's all wrapped up in your identity, right? Your identity as a man, your place in the world as a man. And that does not seem to be his problem at all. For him, it seems to be just general maturity, like I said, general development. And so I think it's a great case of separating the art from the artist, because it's like the opposite side of the spectrum. He's like the perfect example of someone who, if you like their stuff, then it's okay. You know, it doesn't really matter who the guy is. He's not a bad person. But I will say, the art that he should stick to is doing his commentary, okay? Because no matter what you think about that, he's way better at that than debates. And I don't know if he's done other debates. I don't actually know that much about him. Maybe he has, maybe he's done a ton of great debates. If he has, then, and they went really well for him, I would be surprised to hear that. But the last thing I want to say is, the behavior he displayed in the debate is perfectly consistent with a lot of things that I absolutely despise about the current state of stand-up comedy, and just comedy as a whole. And this is the perfect opportunity for me to address some comments I got on the Amy Schumer video, because in that video I said I don't like comedy or stand-up comedians, and that's just not true. I absolutely love stand-up comedy. Like, it's brought so much joy to my life, so much happiness to my life. The thing is, I just miscommunicated, and I've explained this before. I can't communicate. That's why I'm working on it. That's why I take notes. That's why I'm, trying to think of what I'm gonna say ahead of time, because I don't want to do what I did, which is say the exact opposite of what I'm trying to say. And so what I was thinking when I said that in my Amy Schumer video is that I love comedy and I respect the art form, but I feel like these days it's attracting like so many of the wrong people. And maybe I'm just seeing like a negative side of things. It's easy to have that like negative bias on life. And so maybe I'm just like being negative, right? But I feel like it attracts so many people who just are so undeveloped, so immature, and they absolutely refuse to do any sort of self-reflection or improvement, or they cannot take criticism, and they just hide behind comedy. And whenever they do anything wrong or make a mistake or anyone criticizes them, they just say, oh, it was a joke. And they think that then they're not responsible anymore, right? They're trying to avoid responsibility. And when people do that, it takes away from the art form. In my opinion, I think it reduces and degrades the art form as a whole, which is very sad because I love that art form. And there are so many extremely talented, hardworking, hilarious stand-up comedians, or just comedians in general, who bring so much value to our culture, so much enjoyment towards society. They bring so much joy to the world. And so in my video about Amy Schumer, that's what I was thinking when I said I don't like stand-up comedians. Because I do like it. I love it. I just hate when people hide behind it or use it as an excuse to avoid taking responsibility for things. And that's exactly what Def is trying to do. And even Def is like, dude, you gotta at least be funny to try and pull that. You know what I mean? Like, you need to at least be a comedian. Like, you need to at least have hilarious jokes to say, well, it's just comedy. You can't just say random bullshit and then say, oh, well, it's comedy. Come on, guys. In conclusion, I'm not going to unsubscribe. I'm gonna keep watching his videos. Maybe not every single one. Maybe I won't consider myself a fan. I don't know. It's not that important, right? They're just videos. But I am separating the art from the artist, and I am going to allow myself to continue enjoying the art. And I think that if you're a fan of Def Noodles, then I think that it's okay if you do the same thing. He doesn't deserve to be canceled. He's not a bad person at all. He just needs to work on himself, like a lot of us. So that's gonna do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone watching and subscribing and commenting. It's so cool, so exciting. Let me know what you think down below, please. I love reading everyone's comments. I love seeing what people think. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.